What's good, everyone? Welcome to the PWD channel, where we discuss professional wrestling. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing what's next for Jey Uso and the Bloodline. Now, this video is releasing on Wednesday, so in 2 days' time, we'll probably get to see, or hopefully we'll get to see. I'm hoping they don't do us like a little bit of a cliffhanger or something like that. Hopefully we get to see what's next, but this video is going to be speculating what do I think is going to happen. What are some of the possibilities that could happen between Jey Uso and the Bloodline? Is Jey Uso going to choose the Bloodline? Is Jey Uso going to choose his brother Jimmy Uso? What's going to happen? I'm going to be giving some of the options of which ones I think are like most likely, least likely, how I think the story is going to play out. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start the video off immediately. So there's 4 different options that I wrote down that I think could potentially happen. Some a lot more likely than others, but I'll go through each of them and kind of say how I feel about them. So the first option that I think, and none of these are in order, I'm just kind of saying them one by one, but the first option is Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline. Jimmy is out and has to fight to get his brother back on his side. So Jey Uso basically chooses, and Jimmy Uso then has to convince him, kind of similar to how Sami Zayn was kind of trying to convince Jey to leave the Bloodline, kind of similar to that. That kind of happens, that scenario happens, but with Jimmy Uso instead this time. And then the second option I wrote down, Jey Uso sticks with his brother, so he chooses Jimmy Uso. The two then decide to challenge Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. I think this one is the most obvious one. I feel like if they go this route, it's a very safe route, and we could just have a little tag team match between the two, the former Bloodline versus the current Bloodline still. A little bit of a 2-on-2 action. Again, I think I think it's just really obvious. I feel like with the way that the Bloodline story has played out recently, I feel like there's going to be more than that, but I still think this is a really safe option, and it could very likely happen, to be honest. The third option I wrote down is Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline, but only as a plan to tear the Bloodline apart from the inside out. So Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso come up with like some secret plan where Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline. Maybe he even super kicks his brother, makes it all look really real and legitimate. And it only turns out that this is all a ruse, all for Jey Uso to break apart the Bloodline from the inside out. Kind of similar to how Sami Zayn tried to, not intentionally tried to do, but did end up doing somewhat. I mean, it's kind of still, we're still seeing this all unfold. All of this is at the hands of Sami Zayn in some sort of way, and Roman Reigns technically too, but we could see something like that similar where we have Jey Uso just come in, pretend he's going to be part of the Bloodline, pretend that he's going to choose Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, but realistically he's only doing that for the sake of his brother, and he wants to break the Bloodline apart. Now, this one, I feel like, for me, I'll get into it a little bit more, but I feel like this one is possible, and I feel like it could potentially happen. And then the last one, I'll be completely honest about this last one. I think this is the least likely to happen. I really don't see it happening, but it's a potential option for WWE to go. We got Solo Sikoa double-crossing Roman Reigns and siding with the Usos, destroying the Bloodline completely and leaving Roman Reigns all by himself. So in this final option, to me, it's like Solo Sikoa pretended to cross on his brothers and spiked Jimmy Uso, but realistically he's still already talked to his brothers on the side, and he's like, okay, this is the plan. Basically, was kind of similar to my third option when I said Jimmy Uso would break the Bloodline from the inside out by being like a little bit of a spy, I guess you could say. Maybe the same exact scenario, but it's Solo Sikoa. The only reason I don't see this is because if Solo Sikoa wanted to do that, he should have just chosen his brothers from the start, and they could have all 3 been against Roman Reigns, which would make a lot more sense. But again, you never really know. Maybe Solo Sikoa is waiting to see what Jey Uso chooses. There's a lot of different options here. I wrote down 4 options. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more options that could happen, and they could be fantasy booked with this whole scenario. But I'm gonna go again. Now that I've listed the options, I'm gonna go one by one and kind of say how I feel about them and how likely they are, or how I feel about them in general. So the first one, Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline, and then Jimmy is out, and Jimmy then has to fight for his brother. I could honestly see this happening. I think that it's probably less likely than some of the other options, just because we've always seen Jey Uso straight up be so what's the word that I'm looking for? He's always had an alliance with his brother. I can't really think of the word right now, but he's always been loyal to his brother. He's always had a special loyalty to his brother. He's loved him. He's always been a part of him. Those two have just never really had a serious fight. Like, they've never really been against each other. They've always chosen to stick with each other. If one of them makes a poor decision, the other one is there to make that poor decision with him. They'll try to talk him out of it, but they're still going to make the decision at the end of the day. If they're going to join the Bloodline, the other brother convinces the other brother to join the Bloodline. We've always seen these two move as a tag team, as a unit. We've never really seen them permanently split off. Maybe temporarily they go through some beef, but at the end of the day, they're brothers and they're here for each other. And even when Jimmy Uso turned on Roman Reigns, surprisingly to Jey Uso, Jey Uso still never attacked Jimmy Uso right then and there, just like he did Sami Zayn. He was mad, but he didn't do him how he did. He didn't do Jimmy how Jey Uso did Sami Zayn. He chose not to use any violence. He just walked away with his brother and walked out. And he's always chosen his brother. So I do feel like this is the least likely option. And I feel like if Friday Night SmackDown comes this Friday and we do see Jey Uso choose the Bloodline, I feel like it's just going to be a ruse. I can't see Jey Uso genuinely choosing Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. I just can't see it happening, but you never know. This is a possibility, and maybe we'll have to see Jimmy Uso fight to get his brother back and get him on the good side of things. You never know. The second option we have, again, Jey Uso sticking with his brother, and the two take on Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns as a tag team. Maybe we'll see this match happen at Money in the Bank. I could honestly really see this one happening. I said this earlier, I think it's the safest option, and I think that it's the most likely, but it's also the most obvious. And if there's anything that you've had to learn while watching this Bloodline story that's played out for the last 2 or 3 years, if there's anything you could take away from it, is that they never have gone with the safest option or the most obvious option. They've always had a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a turn here and there. So although, again, I do think that this is a safe option, and it will be very good to see, and I will enjoy the tag team match between the two, or between the four technically. I will enjoy that. I just can't see this happening simply because it is the most obvious. But again, I mean, I say I can't see it happening. I can see it happening. I really can, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's really obvious. I expect a turn. I expect a twist. But if they go this route, that's completely fine. I'm all here for it. It's going to be great. I'm going to enjoy it. But again, I would be a little bit weary about it. It'll be good regardless, though. I'd really enjoy it. The third option, Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline, but has a plan to tear the Bloodline apart from the inside out. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I have the suspicion that this is what's going to happen. No idea why. I guess that's because I feel like there's going to be a little twist or a little bit of turn, something the fans don't expect. So I feel like this could be a route. Maybe, again, I've already said it before, but on SmackDown, maybe we'll see Jey Uso super kick his brother Jimmy, and the crowd goes crazy, and that's it. They walk out, or maybe they beat down on Jimmy Uso really badly, and then they walk out hesitantly, but they still do it nonetheless, and Jimmy Uso is officially out of the Bloodline. But then it turns out that this is all a plan between Jey and Jimmy to break apart the team from the inside out. So maybe we'll have Jey causing some drama between Solo and Roman, while the whole people are in the little 3-man faction. Or maybe we'll see Jey Uso in a match, like maybe we get Roman Reigns versus Jimmy Uso, just as an example, and we see Jey Uso betray Roman Reigns right then and there so that his brother Jimmy can win the match. Maybe that will happen. There's a lot of different things that could happen. There's so many options and possibilities that can go with with Jey Uso pretending to choose the Bloodline, but realistically he's only doing it for the sake of his brother. There's a lot of options and a lot of ways that this could play out. And again, I think that this is the way that this is going to happen. And I don't think that this is going to be an immediate effect. Like, I don't think that he's going to do it. I mean, I don't think he's going to okay, let's go back to the last Friday Night SmackDown where Solo Sikoa chose the Usos, but literally 5 minutes later he betrayed the Usos. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think that if this scenario does play out, I think it's going to be one of those ones where Jey Uso chooses the Bloodline, and for the next few weeks or even a month or two, we actually believe, holy crap, he actually chose the Bloodline. And then he makes his move where he tears the Bloodline apart. I think it's going to be more of a slow burner. But again, anything that could happen. The more that I'm saying this, I feel like the more crazier it seems. But this is just my wild prediction, and I could definitely see it happening. And then, of course, the last option, which I've already said is probably the least likely, is Solo Sikoa double-crossing Roman Reigns and siding with the Usos, killing the Bloodline off completely. I don't see this happening. I think that it's an option. I just don't see it happening because, like I said earlier, if Solo Sikoa wanted to double cross Roman, he should have just done it to begin with instead of choosing the Bloodline as a whole. Instead of choosing the Usos. but you never really know. Maybe we'll see a tag team match. Maybe we'll have Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, the Usos. I should have just said the Usos. Maybe we'll have the Usos versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa at Money in the Bank, and Solo Sikoa turns on Roman Reigns. And hey, maybe he turns on Roman Reigns and he doesn't choose his brothers either. Maybe he just leaves the Bloodline completely, and maybe he wants nothing to do with them anymore, and he just goes off as a solo competitor and just straight up like leaves the Bloodline as a whole and completely gets away from the whole picture. Maybe that could potentially happen. Again, I think this fourth option is the least likely option. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you think they're going. What do you think is going to happen on Friday Night SmackDown this coming Friday? What do you think Jey Uso is going to do with the Bloodline? What do you think he's going to choose? How do you think this is going to turn out? Out of my 4 options, which one do you think is most likely? Which one do you think is least likely? Which one would you choose? Would you add any to the list? Let me know down in the comments below, because I'm so interested and intrigued as to what you guys have to say about this and what everyone thinks is going to happen in the storyline, because WWE's built a really good storyline here, and previously we've seen them do lots of twists and turns, and I'm excited to see that happen again. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video there, guys. Let me know down in the comments below if you did enjoy it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't already. We make wrestling content like this weekly. I will be back this Friday with the Friday Night SmackDown review, and then of course, as always, Monday Night Raw review the following Monday. So I'll catch you guys then. Love you all. Peace.